Hi fellow bombers, I'm Brian from Atomic-Moto and I'm standing in front of the Forma Terra Evo X boots. Are these the most protected boots in adventure touring? We think they are, and we're going to tell you why. First, a bit of history on this model. Now, the Terra Evo X is the third iteration of the Forma Terra. The first one had a pretty simple ankle design with just a plastic piece sewn into that area that would sometimes fold in and bite you. Second version had a mechanical hinge. That was a big upgrade, but that mechanical hinge had a lot of stress on one of the seams and would sometimes fail. Forma completely revised the ankle hinge design, and hence we have the Forma Terra Evo X. In other parts of the world, it is still called the Terra Evo, but in the US, we call it the Forma Terra Evo X. Now, let me give you some of the basics of this particular model. Now, first of all, this boot comes in sizes 38, which is roughly a 5.5, all the way up to a 49, which is roughly a size 14. Now, note that the way that Forma does their conversion from EU to US sizing is a little bit different than ours. That affects boots above a size 46 in the European scale. If you look on our size chart on the product page for every Forma boot we sell, there's a little breakdown of what that looks like. If you're still confused, you can give us a call. But this boot weighs 3.38 pounds for a size 10. It weighs 3.72 pounds for this 46 here, which is going to be my pair. I'm going to go out and do a field review on these also. These are 14¼ inches high. That's a little bit taller than most boots in the adventure touring category. This boot retails for $379 as of the filming of the video, and it is made in Romania. Let's hit on the construction of this particular boot. Now, first of all, as I mentioned, it's a little bit taller than usual at 14¼ inches. That's good. That extra shaft support is good. And of course, it's good for twisting forces and also good for impact. The Terra Evo X is fully waterproof. It has Forma's proprietary private labeled Italian-made membrane in it. Forma has a 1-year warranty on the waterproof construction of this boot, and they're one of the better companies that we deal with for waterproof integrity and for after-sales support. The boot has quite a bit of plastic around its exterior. I'm going to start with the toe. It's got a nice piece here that goes over the toe on both sides. Obviously, left side is for shifter protection, right side is just for crush and for impact protection. And it's pretty firm. It gives you really good support. There's a plastic heel counter on the rear. That's also very firm. Plastic inserts on the foot, on the lower part, on the inner and also on the outer side. A plastic shin plate here, good for impact protection. But the big thing about it is the mechanical hinge. And as I mentioned, they've gone through a couple of iterations. This is the newest version of it. And this hinge actually floats on the exterior of the boot. You can see it's not sewn down in certain spots like here. It has a tongue and groove system on it. And it does have a good action for supporting the ankle without putting stresses on the seam like the previous iteration. This is much stronger. It wraps around the back, higher, also down low, good protection on the back of the calf. The boot's got 3 buckles. Forma's buckles are very simple and super sturdy and super easy to use. They're easy to adjust. They're very durable. They're also cheap to replace, though I doubt you would ever have to because, again, they are very durable. The sole is a stitched-on sole. Now, it's not exactly a welt sole like a motocross boot, but it's a variation of that. I believe it's called an ideal welt. But I'm not completely sure, so if you know that, you can post it in the comments below. The sole is a bit firmer on this iteration of the Terra Evo X. First one was super stiff, couldn't bend it at all. Second version, Terra Evo, could bend it actually fairly easy. This one is much stiffer, that's a good thing. They put more rigidity in the midsole, we like that. And then the sole has Forma's design for the lugging pattern on it. It's not really aggressive, but there are quite a few edges so you get good traction off the bike. And the heel is actually shortened. That's a nice thing because it means you can get your foot a little farther forward, a little more easy in the case of shifting. Fit story of this boot is that they are wide. This boot is nice and wide, and the forefoot has a little bit of extra volume in it, so that means you don't need a footbed in this, but if you want to put one, it is very easy to accommodate them. But the fit of the forefoot of this boot, fit in general, is really wide. So if you have a wider foot, this is one model that should be on your short list. Let's talk about the protection of the Terra Evo X. Now, the ankle area protection on this boot, because of this plastic hinge, I'll give you a shot of the outer and the inner side there. The ankle protection on this particular boot is very much above average. The foot protection for crush and for flex is also quite good. It's really, really hard for me to bend this. There's more surface area of the boot. Remember, when you're wearing protective gear, the more of you that is covered, the more you are protected. And in this boot, in the case of this boot, it has a lot more shaft height and coverage everywhere, so that's good for banging off of objects or banging into things. The various bits of plastic all around the boot help support that goal, help work toward that. There is a good amount of ankle protection, so if you are an adventure touring rider and you're going off-road and you might encounter some stationary objects, or maybe you're going to clip this particular boot with a foot peg, this is one of the more protected boots in the category. More on that later. I'm going to do a full field review on this boot. That's going to come up soon, but first let me give you some comments on how we view it and how it's going to work out on the bike. Now, one of the stories about this model that I really like is that it's gone through multiple iterations. A lot of brands come out with a product and they sit on the design of that product for a very long time. One reason is it's easier for them to do it, and it's also another reason is that it's quite confusing to the market to make constant revisions. Everybody kind of wonders which is the latest model and how the latest model works. So manufacturers have to have a greater than average commitment to building a better product to make iterations. And in this case, they did. I'm glad that they revised it a couple times. You know, some other models in the category like the Alpinestars Toucan, that hasn't changed at all, but it's nice to see that Forma is tweaking this. The second thing about this boot is that this is, in our opinion, the most protective boot in the adventure touring category. Now, it's not as protective as off-road boots, but if you are comparing it to every other adventure touring boot in that category, this is the one that has the most protection and coverage. Specifically, it is more protective than a TCX Drifter, more protective than an Alpinestars Toucan, more protective than a CD Adventure 2 Gore-Tex. At the same time, the weight of this boot is quite a bit lower than off-road boots. You know, the lightest off-road boots, the lightest off-road boots that we've found are about 3.8, 3.9 pounds. Most all of them are over 4. This is in the mid-3 category, so that's definitely something that you would notice when you're on the bike, and certainly even more so if you are off the motorcycle. It's comfortable right out of the box. It's got a good amount of flex, a lot of protection, but it actually has a good amount of flex and a good feel. It doesn't break in as fast as a Guérin Balance Oiled or as a Forma Adventure, but on the other hand, the Guérin Balance Oil doesn't have nearly the structure that this boot has, and frankly, the Terra Evo is a much better quality boot than the Forma Adventure. It uses better materials. I like the welt sole more. The leather is better. Everything about this boot is more impressive in my opinion. And then one last thing I didn't mention, who is this boot for? Well, first of all, anybody that has a big bike or even a mid-sized bike that is spending a lot of time off-road. That means if you have an Africa Twin, 1090, 1290, 1190, 990, 950, a lot of the newer bikes that are coming out like Yamaha T7, KTM 790, 890, the Tiger 800, now the new Tiger 900. Those bikes are all moving toward more dirt capability. That means you can take them out into the backcountry, you can go farther with them, go more places, go in rougher terrain. And you're gonna have to adjust your gear when you do that. You can't wear street gear when you're going 50 miles into the backcountry. You need something that makes sure that when you go 50 miles in, that you also come 50 miles back out. And that's a good environment, that's a good situation for you to use this boot in. It's not as easy to use as a balance oiled or a low boot, but that's not the point. The point is this: if you're looking for an adventure touring boot that has the most protection in the category, is made from a really reputable, supportive brand, has great materials, great structure to it, is still quite easy to walk in, shift in, break in, this should be at or near the top of your list. The Forma Terra Evo X. And with that, I'm going to wrap this review up. We are Atomic-Moto, www.atomic-moto.com, home of the Bombers. We are mission focused on finding great gear. We have a great YouTube channel. We would love it if you click subscribe on our channel and click like on this video. And of course, if you sent this video to your buddies, we hope to see you on your bike.